Welcome, everyone, to Gary. I was going to say Gary has issues. Take two. You ready?
Okay, I'm going.
Welcome, everyone, to the Gary and Kenny Show. I'm Gary Kroger, and I am in Waterloo, Iowa. I'm joined by Kenneth Seisler in Calabasas, California. Hi, Ken.
Hello, Gary. Let me be the first to say, how are you?
Well, thank you for asking.
Before you ask me, well. Because oh, you are? Okay.
I'm very well. How are you?
I do have a question about Waterloo.
Okay.
Why was it named Waterloo? Has anything to do with Napoleon and him being...
No.
Were they afraid that Napoleon was going to attack? And they said, if we name it Waterloo, there's no chance he'll come this way.
Ken, yes. I haven't a clue.
Oh, so we'll tease that for
next
week.
There's no Bonaparte relationship whatsoever. We have a river. There's water. Somebody just probably thought Waterloo.
You mean like there was water and there was an outdoor bathroom. A loo.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, makes perfect sense.
Waterloo. Ken,
pardon me, you have business to do. Go ahead.
I have business. We have a sponsor today.
Okay.
We have a sponsor from Waterloo, as a matter of fact. Verve Kombucha in Waterloo, Iowa.
Verve?
Whether you need a kombucha after your workout, are looking for a good meeting spot, or perhaps you're on a date, Verve is designed for you. Great menu and drinks in an extraordinary environment. Check us out online for details, location, and reservations at vervekombucha.com.
When I'm in Waterloo, it's the only place I go.
Now, I had no intention of going to Waterloo, but now I just might.
Now you just might, to go to Verve Kombucha. Now, Ken, we have one other thing. Okay. We're getting fan mail, and I'd like to share a fan letter with you.
You mean from an actual letter, or not a letter, like an email?
Well, it's fan email, yeah.
Okay.
Came through LinkedIn, because I always post our stuff on LinkedIn. And their comment was they love the show.
Oh.
And they think you should be more like me, and I should be more like you.
Huh.
They complimented your casual style and said, Gary, you sound too much like a DJ.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I sound too much like an asshole?
They didn't say that in so many words, but they said it would be nice if Ken took it as seriously as you do and made an effort to dress up, because they noticed that I always put on a nice jacket. I thought it was worthwhile,
This is clean.
No, you look nice today.
Oh, thank you.
You do. Sometimes you're a little casual, and I think they saw one of those shows, and they just noticed that I always make an effort. That effort is out of respect for our guests.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Well, that's my segue. The effort is made out of respect for our guest. And our guest today is a very, very good friend of mine. And he will soon be a good friend of yours, Ken. His name is Barry Blaustein. In fact, if you look at any biographical information, it's Barry W. Blaustein. I first met Barry in 1982, where he was a writer on Saturday Night Live, and his partnership there with David Sheffield was responsible for a lion's share of the sketches that made a star out of a guy named Eddie Murphy. Well, that relationship led to Barry and David Penning Coming to America, The Nutty Professor, the very recent Coming numeral 2 to America, the sequel, obviously. But Barry also wrote, produced, and directed the documentary Beyond the Mat, which I really want to talk about. It's a very interesting look at professional wrestling. And it's, I really want to get into it. But first, please welcome Barry W. Blaustein.
Thank God. You're the first person to ever use my middle initial.
Really? What's the W for?
Introduction.
What's the W for? William?
Wayne.
Do you know that's my middle name?
No, I didn't know that.
I'm Gary Wayne Kroger.
I didn't know that either. Boy, that sounds like, once you add the middle name, it always sounds like an assassin.
Well, yeah, not only that, but see, for me, Wayne is total bullshit. I go, Mom, who am I named after? Oh, I just like the name Wayne. Wayne, why? Oh. You're at least named after an Uncle Wayne.
No, I'm not Wayne. I'm not Wayne. I'm not named after anybody.
You guys are arbitrary middle names?
I have an arbitrary first name.
You're an arbitrary... Wow.
I'm going to kick it off right away and ask Barry a question, and right away he's going to hate my guts.
What?
And you don't have to answer the question.
Okay.
What's Eddie Murphy really like? Barry, how many times have you been asked that question?
Thousands.
Thousands of times. I bet.
Yeah, I asked you that question when I was on Saturday Night Live. What's Eddie really like? When I got there in 82, a Blaustein Sheffield script was the gold standard. It was the Tiffany, and it was largely an Eddie Murphy.
That's why the show was almost off the air.
well, okay. So how did the Sheffield Eddie Murphy relationship begin? first of all, how did it start with David? This country boy from Mississippi comes in.
David was one of the. David and I were two of the last writers hired, and I went to a read through. This Dave hadn't been hired yet. Went through a read through, and some guy sent some stuff in, and Gene asked me what I thought of it, and I really liked the stuff. I thought it was really good, and he got to the show, and everybody was stabbing each other in the back. And why should the show be on the air? And
wow.
This and blah 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 blah.
So this is busting. Your bubble is bursting, right? You're getting your dream job.
Everybody's going. I don't need this job. I don't need this job. Who cares? And I'm going. I need this job. This is my big break. I got to make something out of it. And Dave was older too, and we were similar minds, and we just started writing together.
So you guys are writing together now. When did the Eddie and how did the Eddie relationship? And again, I keep going back to my experience because you and David had his voice and trust. How did that develop?
What happened is Eddie was a featured player, and the original cast was not setting the world on fire. And so we thought, why don't we try? And Eddie was very quiet. Eddie's, can be shy, very shy. Yeah. And we thought, well, this guy can't be any worse than what we're presenting. And my dad had sent me an article about a newspaper article where a court in Ohio ruled that every high school basketball team had to have at least one white player on it. And so we gave this to Eddie, and we talked about it. And Eddie came up with something, edited with him. And he appeared on the air on Update, and you could tell he was fantastic. And then we continued. We started writing all together. Sometimes he pitched an idea. Sometimes we pitched an idea to him. And no one else was writing for him still at the time because they're going, he was a featured player. And I'm going,
the stars aligned.
They really did, because you have different, although Eddie's from Long Island, right? So you're from Long Island, right? David's from Mississippi, but all kinds of very different backgrounds for these three people to come together and all share the same comedic sensibility is kind of interesting. Barry, I'm going to assume you're Jewish, right? So you have a Jewish sensibility, which is very different than, maybe David Sheffield's, but apparently not. So that's kind of interesting.
And I don't even know where this question is going, but here, okay, David's a white guy from Mississippi. You're a white Jewish guy from Long Island, and Eddie Murphy is a black kid. But yet there was a chemistry of ideas and language. Can you, illuminate that?
You guys must have even made fun of it when you were all together, right?
No, No. I never refer to Eddie as a black.
No, I'm not saying that, but just kind of joke around with friends.
No, we don't talk about our differences.
That's interesting. Okay.
And here's the biggest difference: Eddie's a gazillionaire, and we're not.
Well, yeah,
that's the big difference.
Yeah, right, and I don't want to make a lot out of race issue, but someone asked me, knowing David, hey, a couple of white guys, right, coming to America, both of them. It's a predominantly black cast. Do you get any flack for that? Does it come up?
I've never gotten anything from a black actor who appeared in saying, I want to say this, or this is not written correctly, and things like that. We write these movies, and it is odd. It is odd, but it seems to work, and people seem to like them. And
well, I mean, we've sort of transitioned. Coming to America is, and look, my family that I married into. My stepkids and my wife. Coming to America, the original, is in the pantheon of great movies. But then, of course, the Nutty Professor. Monster hit.
Did Jerry Lewis ever see that or comment on?
Yeah,
we heard from. I had a friend who knew Bill Richmond, who was a co-writer of it, and when the movie came out, Bill Richmond asked if he could call me, and he called me and he congratulated. He thought it was very good.
Oh,
and I said, "How do you think Jerry's taking this?" And he goes, "It's probably killing him."
It's probably.
Oh, really?
But on the surface,
which made me really happy.
Right.
It was such a different take. How much is his ear compared to what you wrote? How much collaboration, improvisation, scripting went into that?
There's less improv than people think.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah. There's always room for what Eddie can improvise, but he's got to give us something to improvise off of.
Yeah.
I mean, he's spoken to me when he's making other movies, and he'll call up frustrated, going, "They want me to improvise a scene here, and they've given me nothing to do." He calls people.
Are you on the set of his movies?
No. I'll go visit him occasionally.
Well, no, I mean, I'm talking about the Coming to America. Or
Coming to America, we were on the set.
Oh, you were? Okay, yeah.
Up until there was a writer's strike.
Right.
Oh, so you were. So when you were on the set, how much tweaking were you doing, or was it just...
Oh, very little.
Very little.
I mean, I'll tell you a quick story about how brilliant Eddie is. There was one time he was doing the scene from, I think it was the first one. And, they're shooting the dining room scene, and you spend a day on each character. And he was doing, I think he was doing his brother, the character, the brother. And he started ripping on something, and it made no sense. And I said, "Eddie, what is that?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm responding to something I'm going to improvise in 2 days."
Oh my God, goodness. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Barry, I know it's written because and it must be true, it's on the internet, that it was Eddie Murphy's idea for Coming to America. Coming to America,
yes.
That was his idea. Did he just pick that out of thin air, or was there some story that he read and he said this would make a great movie?
I think the story is that he was on a tour bus going, "I'd love to meet a woman who liked me for me and not just for who I am."
Okay, interesting. All right.
And I thought that would make it interesting.
And then he brought you guys the premise?
Yeah.
You're old school writers, aren't you? Where you put the note cards up there and you have the whole thing. Talk about that process just a little bit.
Not the whole thing, but we put scenes up in major scenes, and to see what the first and second and third act play. And then, but sometimes there'll be things like they fall in love. Well, once we get to that scene, we'll figure out how they do that.
Wow.
And that's really...
See, I find that interesting because...
And I've learned just cast the right people, and you don't need a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, but I mean, I tried a little writing, and I did, but I could never write out. I could never write out the story because I didn't know the characters, so I wasn't sure how the characters were going to react to certain things. So what would happen with me is I would start to just write the movie, and the characters would then start making decisions that would drive the plot. So I didn't have the discipline. Yeah,
that's not uncommon. You and David, though, you write dialogue together on the spot, right? It's not like you take away and come back with a few pages, then collaborate. You're literally together in the room.
Sometimes
vamping the characters.
Every way. We sometimes we're in the room and we'll bang out a scene. Other times he'll go write a version and I'll write a version.
But are you sometimes playing the dialogue, just ad-libbing dialogue, when you're like sitting in a room together? And you'll ad-lib what the woman said, or what this character said, or what that. Oh, wow.
Like the Barbers. It was interesting when we wrote the sequel.
Right.
It was so easy talking like those guys.
That's so funny.
Because those guys were bad. Gary, you remember Clint, right?
I was going to ask you about Clint, because he's fantastic in the movie.
Well, those characters were based on, remember that Clint used to do Clint and Edmund, and they were always... Right,
and I'm not going to attempt, so that I'm not canceled, to imitate them, but they did those characters in the hallways all the time.
All the time, yeah. They were never barbers. As a matter of fact, when Eddie pitched us the idea, he says, "In the Barbers," and they're like, he's a lot like Clint and Edmund. I go, okay, that's easy to.
Well, it was nice to see Clint, because clearly he's well and everything, because I lost touch with him.
It always makes me bring a smile to my face.
So are you audio recording these dialogues? Are you audio recording this stuff as you're ad-libbing verbally?
No, when we're doing it, when Eddie's doing it, yes, we like to audio record it.
Oh, okay.
back in the old days, I would put my ear up to your closed door where you and David were in there, riffing characters, and you did dialogue and dialects and everything.
Were you looking through the keyhole?
I was trying to, but I would put my ear in there and I would wax whimsically. If only they were writing something for me. And I say that out of respect for the fact that your writing was so good. It literally went from the room to the floor. Obviously, there were changes and rewrites.
All right, but let's talk specifically. James Brown's Hot Tub.
Okay, James Brown's Celebrity Hot Tub was written after we left the show. It was written, the day was over, I got into a hot tub. And I went, ow! And that's why it sounds like James Brown. It was written
too hot in the hot tub.
And then we came out with James Brown Celebrity Hot Tub.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
Well, and again, that was one of the first sketches I saw because that was early in '82.
What were some of the other bits that you guys did that became iconic? I mean, he's known for, I don't know, did you guys do the Gumby? Was that you?
We did all the Gumbies. We
did all the
Velvet Jones.
The assassination of Buckwheat.
The assassination of Buckwheat was my favorite piece.
Well, and I think that's the best piece that the program has ever produced was the series of examinations of American media that you guys put into the assassination of Buckwheat. I remember I even got to play a Buckwheat performer who, because a number of them arose after Buckwheat was dead. We were doing Vegas acts as Buckwheat performers. It was genius. It was genius. Yeah.
Now, was there jealousy when all of a sudden Eddie's charisma came through and everybody went, "Uh-oh, this guy is, the real thing"? Was there jealousy or was there support among the other cast members?
You'd have to ask the other cast members.
All right, but just give me your overview without naming names.
Are you trying to get the name Piscopo brought up?
We used to say that Eddie's success went to another actor's head. Okay. I'm sure Gary.
Well, all right. But I got to tell you, that other actor was the hardest working guy there. I mean, I watched this guy work so hard at characterizations, but they were very good friends. I think they're still friends, I'm assuming. But yeah, it was different. Eddie's career skyrocketed, and I'm sure someone wished that they had gone along. I remember just being in awe, and I was happy to be there. Like, holy cow, I'm in the presence of... Eddie would come on after 48 hours and then Trading Places and then Beverly Hills Cop. He would enter a sketch and the room, the energy just went, oh! There'd be a pause and then there'd be applause. It was like John Wayne on the Lucy show. He comes through the door and it's like, oh my God.
Didn't it motivate the other writers now to try to compete with you and David Sheffield to get him material?
Some did. I know when they did it and worked, it was great.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I always felt you guys were very generous. It didn't feel competitive. You had your place and it was secure, but you were very generous. You were very kind to me.
Well, you were easy to work with, and there was no one on the show who didn't like Gary, especially Eddie.
Well, that's kind. That's very sweet. So Coming to America. So I'm expecting to be disappointed because Coming to America was so iconic. And it was 1,000 years from the first one. I thought, why are they
just
doing
about Coming to America, but now it has the two in the middle.
America,
right. It's got the two. Right.
So my expectations are low. I heard you guys were doing it. Okay, they're going to bring back some of the chemistry, right? And so I watched it in seclusion, because it came out during COVID. I loved it. And on some levels, I loved it more than the first because there were some depth to character, Eddie's character, some surprises. The barbershop was back, and I loved it, Barry. I loved it. That's really a comment more than a question.
Well, a lot of I heard from a lot of people just because things were so bad with COVID and people were just depressed and a lot of media and movies were about, social issues, that it was so nice to have just an escapist entertainment, that it was really like comfort food movie that people just got to sit back and laugh and have a good time. That was a general consensus I would hear about my people. It was nice just to enjoy a movie.
Yeah. Good experience?
People really seem to like it. I mean, the big challenge for us was trying to figure out, in the first movie, he's 21 years old and naive, super naive.
Yeah.
And you can't be now 58 or however, 55, however
Who's the
old.
patriarch.
Right. You can't be that and be that naive.
Right.
You're being
well, Wesley Snipes was the comedic revelation for me. When I saw him in Dolomite, and then in that, I was like, that's not the Wesley. His comic timing, he just went all in. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was great. He was really funny.
You seem to transpose the Eddie dilemma from the original onto the children. In other words, there's your journey of naivete and discovery, right?
All right.
Well, hats off. Well done. All right. Got to talk about wrestling.
Okay.
Got to talk about wrestling. Kenny, I know you're not a wrestler.
My favorite thing I've ever done.
My favorite thing. Well, I can't say it's my. I already told you the assassination of Buckwheat was my favorite thing. But now, I got to give this an intro. Because I was like lots of people who just dismissed professional wrestling. Dismissed it. We know it's fake. It's bad acting. It's ridiculous. It's cartoonish. Totally dismissed it. So in 2000, I see that my friend Barry Blaustein wrote, produced, and directed a film about the World Wrestling Federation, right? About professional wrestling. I thought, well, I got to go see it just because it's Barry. It showed me what you already know. You even say in the introduction early on, we know it's fake. They know it's fake. The fans know it's fake. It's drama, it's cartoonish, it's elevated, it's silly, but the results are real. You are getting hurt. That's not fake. You are taking this challenge and this punishment to entertain people. Well, I suddenly looked at it completely differently. So, Barry, you were a kid loving professional wrestling. Connect the dots here.
Well, I had always been a big fan. And I've also been embarrassed that I liked it. I didn't tell people I liked it. And I turned 40, and my wife threw me a surprise party. And I hear this voice of this wrestler that I grew up with, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
Come on. Barry Blaustein, this is your life. Come in the backyard. This is your life. And I never met Dusty Rhodes before, but I had met a few wrestlers before Dusty. And he, suddenly the cat was out of the bag. It was like, someone showing you the pornos collection or something. Everyone knew I liked wrestling.
It was your coming out.
What?
It was your coming out.
It was my coming out.
Your pro coming out.
And I, for years, wanted to do a documentary about it because I knew a few of them. And I knew the behind-the-scenes life was interesting and how what's it like, how does it affect their families? And how does pretending to be a character 15 minutes a day, a superhero, 15 minutes a day, where you're in control of everything, what happens the rest of your day? And it took about 2 years to get funding and approval, and I spent another year of traveling around with these guys without cameras to getting their trust, because they don't trust people from the outside. And
well, I found it interesting that, I'm not a wrestling fan, but and so when I saw that you had done this movie, this wrestling thing, I went to look for it, and it comes right up on YouTube. You can watch the entire movie on YouTube.
Can you?
For free.
I know that part I'm not happy with.
Yeah, no, I was like, a full feature movie, it's right there. Like,
well, now, if I know correctly,
how are they doing that?
They're doing something illegal.
Oh, wow.
So,
how did
you watch it? It's on Netflix. And
well, this is a very a protected world. How did you, first of all, get in with Vince McMahon? And then, from what I understand, Vince at one point saw that, wait, maybe they're showing too many of our bruises here and wanted to back out. Is that true?
No, what happened is I got through Vince by wrestlers trying to introduce me and various other people trying to get me an introduction to him. And I would meet with him every 3-4 months. And he'd go, now, what's your movie about again? And I'm like, Vincent, hasn't changed in 3 months. It's still about. And he offered me originally, he says, what's the budget on it? And he offered the original budget was $500,000. And he says, I'll give you $3 million to make it. And I go, I can't make a documentary about someone who's the subject matter, who's the producer. And so he agreed. There was a day he finally signed the release. I got him on a weekday, I guess. So he signed the release. And then when I started the documentary, wrestling always goes up and down curves in popularity. When I was doing it, it was not that popular. It was on a downswing, and WWE was very much on a downswing.
Right.
In the course of making the movie, Steve Austin and Rock and
The Rock.
Oh, and Undertaker.
Who's in your film.
Yeah. They all became big stars, and they just started being very mainstream. And then that's when Vince was like, I don't know, you know.
How did he feel? Or did you speak to him after the documentary?
Yeah.
And what was his thoughts?
Well, I got in. We saw it in a screening room in Universal, which I think they're still defrosting. And because part of the deal was he had to see the film. He couldn't make any changes in it, but he had the right to see the film. And it was there with his wife and his agent. And his first reaction was, I don't know, maybe I'm too close to it. I'm too close to it. I don't know. And his wife's going, I hate it. I hate it. And she goes, you don't show them having fun. And I go, I show them having fun. You don't show all the sides. I go, you're right. I don't show them taking steroids. I don't show them the sexual harassment. I have all that on film if you want me to put that in there to give you a more complete picture of what it's like backstage. Which way, by the way, I didn't have this footage. But
oh, really? Oh, wow. I was going to say, I think it's time to release that.
Good bluff.
And he was like, maybe I'm too close. And his agent said, I hate it. And I turned to him, a very powerful agent. And I turned and I said, who gives a fuck what you think?
Wow, great.
That was
great.
So Vince then offered to buy the movie from Universal. He called up the next day and he said, I'm glad to work with you. I'd love to work with you again. But I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do everything to stop this movie from being seen. Because I hate the fact that Universal is going to make money off characters I created. You can make as much money as you want. And I'm going, there's not a lot of money in this. He says, but I'm coming after it. And no, it's nothing personal against you. And I said, well, Vince, I'm going to come back after you and know that it's nothing personal.
I did not know the Blaustein cojones like that.
All right. And so then what started was mostly in wrestling circles, but in main media, we had a feud. I was like involved in a wrestling feud, but it was a real.
Yeah. Well, that's where I first heard about it. And I want to address Vince McMahon because we know he'll watch this podcast. You know what? This is what made me appreciate wrestling. The admission, look, we're writing the stories. We're choreographing this. But these people are really putting their bodies on the line. And Vince McMahon himself said, we're making movies. We're writing scripts. Right. We're writing dialogue. We have makeup people. We orchestrate. We put music to this event. We are creating this entertainment. In that context and real risk, I saw wrestling completely differently and became, in my way, a fan. My kid loves wrestling.
See, I have a completely different reaction, which I said to you earlier.
Yeah.
And if you think it's okay for me to say, I will say, is that, first of all, I don't think he comes across very flattering. And I didn't watch the whole documentary. I just saw the first half hour. But I've never been a fan of his in the same way I've never been a fan of Rupert Murdoch, because I think what they do is they exploit the lowest common denominator, which is like with Rupert Murdoch, he puts out anything that's spectacular to get eyeballs. and that appeals to a low common denominator, and he just feeds them more and more dumb stuff. I think they both.
Rupert Murdoch's playing off this stuff that he's doling out as reality, and this is really what's happening.
Yeah, but I think what Vince does, he creates, and I know that the fans maybe know it's not real, but they react in a way that they truly believe it. It's almost like Trumpism. It's like we know it's not real, but we're reacting in some kind of primal way because we want to believe. They want to believe.
You go to a movie.
Yes.
And you're watching James Bond, let's say. Mm-hmm. Or John Wick, or something, and you see them drive a car off a roof and they land on the street and they're still going. Now, we know that's not real, but we get a visceral thrill out of it.
But don't people that go to wrestling want to believe it's real?
Well, they might. Let me say one piece here, because I'm basically with Barry on this.
You go to James Bond, do they know it's not real?
I think they know
the lowest common denominator, which might not be entirely fair, but those people are getting what they want, and they don't feel like they're the lowest common denominator.
Well, nobody feels like they're the lowest.
And can afford. And also from the documentary, you're looking at these beat-up old wrestlers who are still saying, man, when I'm in that ring, it's magic.
I get that, but Barry, when you go to these, when you go to a live wrestling event and you look around at the fans that you're sitting with and around,
right?
Do you feel an association? When I see those fans, they don't look like NASCAR fans or those kind of fans. That they don't look like me. They're not. They're different. They're a little bit more aggressive. They seem a little bit more blue collar, low common denominator. I don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they seem a little different than you.
Statistically, that's not even true. I mean, the average wrestling fan makes more money than the average baseball fan.
No, that's great, but their behavior. Oh, I didn't know that, but I don't know anything about
behavior.
That
is some people will mug for a camera. They'll mug for the camera, some audience members, but basically, most of them see it the way I see it.
I think they're playing their part. They're acting that way because that's their part of the pageantry, and they get to be in it.
Well, I think they look silly.
Barry doesn't look.
Not
like
you, Barry. You don't look silly, but the rest of them look silly. What?
No. Again, they're participating. I think if I went to a wrestling match, I would be like, kill him.
No, you wouldn't wear a sports jacket. First of all, they kill you. They see you in that sports jacket, they're going to kill you.
No, that's unfair.
But everybody's participating in the pageantry.
I was once flying on a plane, and there were some wrestling fans, and they engaged me in conversation. And I realized 5 hours later, when the plane landed, I talked about wrestling nonstop for 5 hours. And I'm going, I'm no different than them. I may be more educated or something, sophisticated. But I'm going, they're me. We look at it the same exact way.
No, for me, I don't get it.
Right.
So that's all. But Barry, I know that now that you're out as a wrestling fan, I want you to know I believe in diversity. I believe in diversity. I believe that you all should be accepted.
There's a place for Barry at the table.
There's a place for you, and you could be more than happy.
Let's talk about the table. The last time I saw you in person, Barry, you very generously, graciously supported my campaign for Congress.
Right.
You know, I was, we'd kind of lost.
Picked another loser, did you, Barry?
Yeah, I lost. I lost. But I was pleasantly surprised. We never talked politics. I was surprised to see that we're all on basically the same page.
Right.
It was very, very rewarding to have you as part of my campaign.
Thank you. What was the experience like for you running for office?
Well, I answer this question all the time. I did lose, but you go in it to win. So it's very disappointing when you lose, and it cost me a lot of money, of which I'm still paying back, I'm not afraid to say. But I met people, I talked about the issues, I saw what can be done, I saw what isn't being done. I met people of every strata, every economic and social and gender strata, and you start to realize who you are. You start to discover things about yourself you might not have known before. You have a broader view of the world.
Maybe spectrum. I should run for office.
Maybe so. You learn to embrace pro wrestling fans. Barry, I loved every bit of it. Not raising money. Hated that. But I would find myself in front of Central Committee meetings 4 times a week talking about what people's issues were and listening to them. It was the best performance of my life.
Would you do it again? Would you run again?
I will not ever call up friends again and ask for $500, $500. If there were campaign finance reform, I would throw my hat in the ring. But I don't want to ask people for money anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's what I hear politicians do. They spend 8 hours a day just trying to raise money.
Unless you want to throw some of that beyond the mat money my way, you know, and just create a pack and fund my campaign, Barry.
But back to the writing. Are you writing something now?
I am.
Is there an Eddie Murphy project coming, or
there might be?
Okay.
Might be.
Oh, that was coy.
I'm writing something. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh.
And
my mother had Parkinson's.
And it's a one-man play about Parkinson's, dealing with Parkinson's.
And
A comedy.
So this is a comedy, huh? So that's kind of interesting. I mean, let me ask you another question. Do you enjoy writing?
Coming to America while I had Parkinson's.
Is that right?
Is that right?
Well, I'm proud of you as well, Barry.
And now I teach also. I'm a full-time professor.
Oh, where?
Yeah, I knew that as well.
At Chapman University.
Oh, Chapman, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This new project, this is your own. This isn't I mean, you guys write a lot of stuff on your own.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks of, Blaustein and Sheffield, but you obviously have separate careers and lives.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to make an observation here, which hopefully doesn't offend anybody, but I don't mean it in that way. But, wrestling is a very popular entertainment. A lot of critics, like myself, whatever, critically, they don't give it a lot of respect, but it's incredibly popular. Your movies are not that, let's say these are not like critic favorites, but they're incredible popular entertainment. So you you have that in common, the whole idea of you have very popular taste.
The movie that I did that got the best reviews and great reviews was the wrestling thing.
Was the wrestling thing. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do you read the reviews on your movies?
Yes, I do.
Yes, so that was a very careful yes.
Yeah, well,
you didn't want to admit to it?
The power, but there are times when you go on Rotten Tomatoes and you see I got a bad review from film school dropouts. I don't really care with it. All my projects, I have an opinion. I have an opinion in them, and I don't let what the critics say change my opinion of it.
Right. Right. Is there stuff where you've read a review and went, they're kind of right?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Yeah.
There was a movie I directed where I said, this is what exactly the critics are going to say.
Really?
And because they were changing around, I said, you're turning this into something that's not. And this is what critics are going to say. And the New York Times review was almost verbatim what I said when I stole them.
Well, I learned long ago, and it's a cliche, if you're going to read the good stuff, you got to read the bad stuff and treat it somewhat equally. There's a few people in my life I trust, and I trust my instincts. I look at a lot of stuff and I cringe that I did it or I chose to do it that way. But if I like something and somebody else doesn't, Kenny, we talk about this all the time. That doesn't really matter. You're not going to diminish my enjoyment of something.
Do you go out to the movies or you watch movies at home on Netflix?
Yes.
What are your tastes as far as comedies are concerned?
I watched a movie again that's about 15 years old that I think's an undiscovered classic.
Which?
Cedar Rapids.
Oh, I don't know that.
Which I'm 60 miles from, although it was shot, I think, in Wilmington, North Carolina, to be Cedar Rapids. But an excellent movie. You don't know Cedar Rapids? It's just, Ken, you don't know Cedar Rapids?
I don't. No.
Hysterical film. I have it in the garage.
Oh, okay.
It's on my A rotation.
Okay.
And they did capture, didn't they, the sort of Midwestern, well, you're not, that's my experience, not either of you, but yes, the dialect and the Midwestern sort of, we obsess over the minutia.
One of the things I liked about it was funny, but it didn't make fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that.
It didn't feel superior to the characters.
Right. Yeah. I follow. I definitely want to check that out.
Speaking of the opinions that we have, Kenny and I play a little game. And it's just for our own amusement.
Well,
and you don't even have
it's because we're bitter.
And here's, I'd say you're more bitter than I am.
I'm totally bitter. I accept that.
You tend to go negative and I tend to go positive. So Barry, you're welcome to go positive. But
Okay.
it's kind of celebrity encounters, who we'd like to throw under a bus and who we would like driving the bus.
Well, I think people like to hear the gossip. I think even the name of our show is Two Showbiz Veterans with Stories to Tell. And this is our opportunity to tell some stories about our run-ins with celebrities.
All right. Kenny, I think I know your story, and I want you to tell it, because I have loathing for this man myself.
Loathing? Well, he's one of the great film actors of our time, Academy Award-winning. Unbelievable. I met my friend Mark Gordon. Mark Gordon is a good friend of mine. He produced Ray Donovan. So he has a Christmas party, and I'm standing around with my friends. We're drinking and, whatever. And I see John Voight enter, and he starts to walk out into the garden. He's by himself. He's just wandering by himself. Nobody's talking to him. And I'm going, holy shit, John fucking Voight. And he's walking, and I go, and I never do this, but I have to do this because I'm thinking my mother knew that I was in a party and John Voight was here. She would just like freak out. So as he's walking, I step in front of him and I just do, hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Ken Seisler, and I just wanted to say hello. And my friend Nick Thiel, who's a writer, I don't know, do you know Nick Thiel? He's a writer. Barry, okay. Anyhow, he comes over with me, and John Voight says, oh, hi, how are you doing? Because he's kind of soft-spoken. And we just start having a conversation, and I'm asking questions, and I'm saying, where do you shoot Ray Donovan? He says, over at Sony. And this was the time when the Korean had just hacked into Sony Studios because of the movie they were making. And so that prompts a conversation about Korea and the United States, and he starts to go into this incredible conspiracy theories about books they read and all of these things and how the government's in. So now I'm standing there with my friend Nick, and I'm going, first of all, this is incredible. I'm hoping somebody takes a picture that I'm talking to John Voight. But after a while, he's going on and on. I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, I got to get away from this guy. This is ridiculous. This is going on and on and on. And finally I say, hey, anybody need anything from the bar? And my friend Nick looks at me like, what do you mean? Where are you going? Don't leave.
Don't leave me with John Voight.
And I just walk away. And last thing is I see my friends, the look on Nick's face, looking at me like, help, where are you going? Don't. And that was it. And I was like devastated. John Voight was bizarre.
He is now all over TikTok with videos. Look, he's a great actor. Some seminal films, Midnight Cowboy. He is batshit crazy. He has these videos that are literally his pie face sweating about the evil of liberalism and how we're destroying America and how we're filled with hate and how we must be killed. I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah, that really threw me. So
I
that was
can't
a
watch him
disappointment
anymore after those.
Yeah.
Now, Barry, I'm going to give you the option of a plus or down. I've got one that I'd like to share.
Okay.
But I'll give you first dibs. Good story, bad story, somebody you'd like to see, in a hot tub with John Voight?
No, but you're talking about that story being stuck with someone and not being able to escape. And it's ironic. And when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, this was immediately came to my mind. I was in Las Vegas. For some strange reason, I knew Don King. I met him when I was in college, working on a student film, before he became real famous. And for some strange reason, he took a liking to me and he stayed in touch with me. So he invited me to a fight in Vegas. And he said, it was a party, and he says, I got you a table with the champ, with Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
But this time Muhammad Ali is ill health. Okay. And all this. And he was just mumbling
wow.
And doing these magic tricks. And it was like, here I am, one of the greatest people of our lifetime. And I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Oh, yeah.
When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, that's the first thing I thought was, this is Muhammad Ali, and I didn't want to talk to.
Ooh.
He doesn't want to talk to me.
Wow. Well, that was, okay, Gary, follow that.
Well, I can't follow that.
No.
Exactly. Although I'm going to tell you a little positive story that ends with a nice uplifting lesson.
Thank God.
The other day, somebody said to me, I was talking about working with George Hamilton. I worked with him on a series, then I produced his daytime television show. We became very, very good friends. And I mentioned his name to some kids because I'm doing a show, and they said, who's that? Somebody said, oh, he's the bad actor who's the tan guy, and now he's too old, and it's like he's a nobody, right? And I thought, well, no. George Hamilton was a big star in his day, and he's a very fascinating, intelligent guy. And I told him a little story that changed my life. I'm a Midwestern guy, and when I'm doing this series Spies, I'm making really good money every week. And he said, Gary, you're the kind of guy, aren't you, that you make a bunch of money, you dig a little hole, and you put your money in it, and you make sure that nobody saw where you put it. And I don't know if you remember me at SNL, but I was like that, Barry. I made money, and it's like nobody can see what I made. Right? Who's paying for what? Okay, here's my percentage of the tip. I was very much like that. And George said, you've got to become a river for money. When you get it, pass it. When you get it, move it. So now there's a need for you in the system of money. And I took that to heart, and it changed.
And you're broke.
I'm broke. But it gives me the courage, if you will, to run for office because yeah, I can be broke, but you know what? It's going to come, and it always does. I always find something. I don't worry about that part of life the way that I did from counting pennies. And that was life change. So yes, George Hamilton for me was a very uplifting. So that was good, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not dirt. I mean, I was kind of looking more for dirt.
Well, we told our dirty Robert.
No, I have more dirt on more celebrities. I'm just holding.
I remember that moment.
Yeah, you were there. It keeps getting mine. Hey, Kenny, next show. Yeah. Maybe, I'll think of somebody I'd like to throw under a bus. Oh, there's plenty of people.
I think that's what the people really want to hear. Just like in wrestling, they want to see they want to hear about the bad guy.
They want the blood.
They want the blood. Yeah. Got to give it to them. Yeah.
Barry, we have taken enough of your time.
I know the question I wanted to ask you, Barry.
Oh, okay. Finally, he thinks of his question.
Do you watch Saturday Night Live now?
I watch it almost every week.
You do? And comments, feelings, things. It's.
I think like all times, some weeks are great, some weeks aren't great. They just did a show with Carey Mulligan. That was, I think, one of the best shows they ever did.
I agree.
And you're going, Carey Mulligan. I mean, she's a great actress, but you don't think we're a comedian. It's just the writing was all. Dave and I went back to Saturday Night Live
to do the 40th.
No, right? When Eddie hosted.
Oh, that's what I meant. That's what I meant was the Eddie hosting. Right.
Yeah.
And how was that with Eddie? How was he? Was he having a great time?
I loved the show.
I was.
It was an event.
Yeah.
I knew you guys had gone
but
back.
I got to meet Lorne. I never met him before.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
And was he gracious or?
Yeah, he was gracious.
That's good. That's good.
He was like, the way we do this show here is we do this and this. And I'm like, Lorne, I worked on the show.
Yeah. But it does seem to me their production values, the budgets now, some of these segments that they do, these, filmed pieces, they'll do a lot of film pieces. And the production values are very high.
Oh, yeah. Well, when it's just technology has changed. When we were doing the show, Gary, you could do 4 film pieces a year.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was celluloid. Yes. The show was great with Eddie. I even wrote about that one on my blog. Gary Has Issues.
Yeah, I think the show is hit and miss. I think the writers, a lot more writers than we had.
A lot more cast.
Yeah.
I wish they would I feel bad for the cast when they always can't put celebrities and guest stars in.
Yeah. What's your feeling what they did when they brought Elon Musk and those kind of people? Do it matter when they bring out if there was some kind of backlash?
Controversy.
Yeah. I don't think you should have politicians on there unless they're out of office, because I think what you're saying is you're giving them an approval. Oh, you might disagree with Trump, but he's a great guy.
Right, right.
And I would say that on the other side, too. I would say I don't think you should have Hillary on or something. Oh, she's...
Of course. Mm-hmm. Of course. or the retired. We had George McGovern on, but I liked the Elon Musk. Not that I thought it was the greatest show, and he wouldn't, but I had no problem with a controversial host. That's your job, is to be controversial.
Well, the thing is, I would say when I hear, it kind of endeared me to Elon Musk, because from what I hear, what he got there, people really liked him. He was willing to be made fun of, and as long as he was able to make fun of himself. And I think it came through.
When he said he had Asperger's.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly right. Exactly.
Well, of course. Yeah. Well, my hat's off to them all for that. Hey, Bear, we've taken a lot of your time today because I want to point out that you carved out time.
Your fiancé just called. They're waiting for you.
You carved out time for the Gary and Kenny show, and today you are getting married.
Yes.
Married.
Congratulations.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Yes.
I'm not sure how it worked out that you said, why didn't you postpone us?
Because I committed to you guys first.
You committed to us first.
And I put show business first, which is why
Do you have any other commitments today besides getting married?
What?
Dentist?
Do you have other commitments today before you get married? Do you have to go do other things? Oh, you do. So you have a busy day.
You are a man of integrity and honor, sir.
Thank you, Gary.
I'm going to tell you this. I know we're all saying goodbye, but I do want to interject this because I think it's kind of relevant. My son is a manager, and he manages writers. And he submitted a script of one of his writers. And this person responded in email that we're only accepting material from people of diversity.
Right.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Well, it's unbelievable. It's very believable.
It is believable.
On this side of the issue, but for years, people of diversity walls were blocked off.
Mike, the pendulum has swung.
Well, there is a tendency to take the right idea and maybe go too far to compensate for the fact that it was wrong for so long. So it is the right thing, but at the same time, it does defeat itself.
Well, listen, it's a timing thing. I'm victim of it too. I'm a TV director, but they're also looking for people of diversity or women and whatever, and I understand it. But I'm grateful that I am not now looking for a job as a white guy. And Barry, if you were trying to write now, it might be more difficult for you.
Well, yeah, except, when Hollywood's always looking for something new and young.
Mm-hmm.
And when I deal with ageism.
Right. Me too.
I was the benefit of ageism when I was starting out.
That's right. Yeah.
So I can't really complain that much.
Right. Yeah.
I think what will happen, it's taken a long time for Hollywood to catch up, and they still haven't caught up. And I just don't. There was a time when I got divorced. I got divorced when I was around 50. No, 55. And
she went over the younger guy.
I was getting tired of the business. Same time they were getting a little tired of me.
Right.
And I didn't want to spend the rest of my life seeking approval from people whose opinion I didn't really respect. And so I decided to become a professor. And as I tell my students, all my life I've been judged. Now I get to judge you.
Interesting.
And it's fun, and it fulfills also a performer in me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you want to have a little bit of a performer in you when you were at SNL? Do you think maybe
you didn't put yourself in sketches? No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, in fact, you very clearly didn't, and other writers often did.
Yeah.
Hey, Barry, I'm just delighted to be in touch with you.
Good talking to you, Gary.
Good talking to you. Maybe next time won't be a Zoom. Wishing you the best. Going to keep in touch. Going to bring Tischler into our little coffee clatch when I get out there. Oh, and speaking of Bob Tischler needs to be mentioned when we talk about the Buckwheat Was Assassinated sketches, because he worked on that. He wrote that with you and David, and he deserves credit. Kenneth, always a pleasure to see you. It's as warm here as it is in Calabasas. It's 90 degrees in Waterloo right now.
No, we're actually
Waterloo,
we're pretty good. Yes. It's 90 degrees and wow.
Right off the island of Elba. I want to thank all of our viewers listening and those who like to actually see our faces. We are on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We have a YouTube channel, The Gary and Kenny Show. We are also on DBNA Streaming TV. You find that at probably dbna.com. Anyway, thanks for tuning in.
And if you mention us at, what's the name of the restaurant?
Verve Kombucha in
If you
Waterloo.
mention it's a Verve Kombucha, you won't get any. There's no discount. You won't get anything, right?
Small plates, kombucha with drinks. I don't know if you know what kombucha is.
Mention you heard it on Gary and Kenny Show.
The Gary and Kenny Show. Thank you, Kenny, and especially thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Barry.
Peace, my friend.
Bye.
Later.